It's Tuesday, October 8th, and I replayed Life is Strange remastered version, episode 2, Out of Time. I'm replaying Life is Strange, the remastered version, because the calendar dates match up. I'm replaying Life is Strange. Have fun. And before we start into the episode, just like in the last one, I want to read you a short little summary of the episode from the Life is Strange wiki. Episode 2, Out of Time. On October 8th, Max tries to find out more about her ability to rewind time, and finds out the reason for Kate's sudden change in mood and behavior. Chloe tests out Max's rewind power intensively, and Max starts to discover the limits on her ability. Max will eventually discover the ability to stop time itself to save her friend Kate from a suicide attempt. It's a new day at Blackwell Academy, and we start the day with some cool little environmental storytelling. Max's room is a mess, because she's been up all night doing research on time travel. And that's just kinda cool. And even though I'm familiar with the Life is Strange series, and especially the first game for such a long time, I have never checked out any of the material that has been mentioned in the game talking about time travel stuff, which is probably, I don't want to say bad, but I probably should have checked that stuff out, because I'm sure I'm missing out on some great stories. I mean, I do know Back to the Future, but I knew that before Life is Strange, so that doesn't really count here. And so you have and then there's, as everyone knows, you go and explore the room. I think I accidentally overwatered Lisa. She might be dead next episode, because I watered her in the first one, and I watered her in the second one, and Max's mom texted that, also don't drown her, and I'm like, fuck. I think I've killed Lisa this episode. And so Max is all like, yeah, I need a shower, and so you grab your shower stuff and head for the showers, and then there's like the first big thing of the episode that happens. You run into Kate and you talk to her for a second, and she wants her book back, and then you leave for the shower stall, and then Victoria and one of her goons enter, and she's super mean and harasses Kate, and it's overall a really horrible scene. And Max is just there, naked in her shower stall, peeking out behind the curtain, and I really wish at that point that Max, or in that case, the player would have had the opportunity to step in again to protect Kate. I get why it didn't happen. It would have made for a really weird situation if Max stepped out naked out of the shower, and it probably would have made things worse for Kate if a naked Max were to protect her in such a situation. Like, that would have been absolute ammunition for Victoria to just throw another mean one-liner on that situation. So it's probably for the better, but that was a moment where I really wish, Max definitely should have been able to step in and help Kate in that situation. And so Kate leaves, and Victoria leaves the link to the video on the mirror and jokes some more about the situation, which is like really horrible. Like, I know what it's like to have videos online and people in school making fun of you for that, and I'm not talking about my YouTube channel. I was legit bullied back in school with videos of me online that were filmed without my permission. Not a great situation, but I got them taken down by talking to someone from that group who did that I was a little bit closer to, and said, yo, hey, can you get them to take them down? I don't want to involve any authorities, so let's just do that between us and tell them to take that down. And they did, and it definitely helped with the whole situation, but I also had someone have my back who helped me, and I'm to this day really thankful for that person. And so that situation ends. Obviously, I had Max erase the link from the mirror, and so she goes back to her room, picks up the book for Kate, and goes to Kate's room. Again, just like I did in the first episode, which I didn't mention because I hadn't that much of a structure for the episodes yet, I erased the mean stuff from the whiteboard at the door. And then, entering Kate's room, I noticed something that I don't think I've noticed before. Maybe I don't know if it was the first time that I've played it with headphones, or like maybe it was the quality of the headphones that I played with, or something else. I don't know if it was added later, but the sad piano music that was playing in Kate's room was wow. It really, really added to the sad and depressing vibes in the room. And obviously, here comes a bit of metagaming in. I snooped through Kate's stuff, looking at the postcard from her dad, looking at her Bible where she wrote down her favorite Bible verse and all that stuff, because I know from previous playthroughs that you need all that info to talk her down from the roof later in the episode. And obviously I did that, but I would have done it anyway because I'm using this playthrough to also look at all the tiny details and listen to conversations and all the things to just take everything in, and maybe even with gained experience on things like world building in games, and also changed life experience and all that stuff. So it was a mix of both, obviously information gathering for the situation later, and it was also looking at stuff, and it's just so, I almost want to say, sad that you don't get to interact more and have at least like a week before the events of Life is Strange happen to have like time to interact with the characters that you want to interact with and not be driven by the whole story. So, talking about the story, when you give Kate her book, she stops you before you can leave the room and asks you for advice if she should go to the police. And there was my first bit of not being sure how far I'm getting into the metagaming, because at that point I actually wasn't 100% sure anymore what the outcome would be in sense of metagaming. Obviously, after I picked one of the answers and seeing her reaction, I obviously knew what the right thing would be, and going even further into the metagaming, I know that nothing bad would happen to Max, because it's not Detroit Become Human, so if I really fuck up at some point, Max doesn't die. It just goes into the you need to rewind here mode, and that's it. So the story luckily isn't so complex as that would bite Max's ass later. So I told her to go to the police, because even though like the Prescotts own the place and everything, realistically in the real world that would be what you would need to do. So I picked that, and I also thought about handling the situations like I feel like they would be reasonable to handle in the real world, and not with having gameplay decisions in mind. And then it's time to meet Chloe at the Two Whale Diner. But as always, as I do with this playthrough, before advancing with the plot, I went out to explore, and I ran into the homeless lady, and I remembered that fan theory that is out there, and that is, and you all probably know it, because why would you listen to a Life is Strange podcast episode full of spoilers if you don't know the game and if you're not a fan and stuff? But the fan theory is, in case you've missed it, that the homeless lady is actually Max from like a different timeline, and then she aged because all of the time traveling and stuff. And I think I really like that theory, to have some little nod in there that something happened, because also this woman knows a lot, but also she has her camp near the diner, and I think homeless people also tend to see and hear a lot, since they're out so much and people pass by and everything. So either it could be Max from another timeline aged up to look like that, or she's just a wise old lady. But yeah, I really like this fan theory, even though it was debunked according to the wiki. And entering the diner, I did some more exploring. There was again, just like in several places of the game, mean graffiti against Kate and also mean graffiti against Rachel Amber. And then I did some more exploring and talking to people. And there was this policeman at the counter that I talked to, and he said something really interesting about David Madsen, which I also kinda noticed to be like this whole overlapping theme of painting him as not a great guy, because the cop said something along the line of, at the station we're happy that he's where he is. Not everyone can be a cop. And I think that probably plays into his paranoia that I guess they probably assume him to be trigger happy or something, that some situations could definitely escalate in the wrong way. And yeah, just that's just that thing that keeps coming up. And I feel like the game is putting like a little, I think the right term is red herring there, which is kind of funny because outside there were fishers complaining about the fishing being a dying branch in Acadia Bay. And next up was this truck driver who kinda talked shit about Joyce, and Max defended her and said that she wants to be like Joyce when she grows up, and I'm guessing that's already Max's honest opinion, and she just voiced that even more convincingly to defend Joyce. But it got me thinking that kinda tells a lot about Joyce and Max's relationship, and possibly also about Max's relationship to her mom. Because I don't know, I feel like, and I don't know if and how canon it is, and if there's like any stuff to read up on that, like, but I feel like Max was one of those kids, and especially in her friendship with Chloe, where she was always or often visiting Chloe at her place when they hung out, and not the other way around. Like, I, for example, had with my best friend when she was still living with her mom, she was more often at my place than I was at hers. And it's kind of funny how this is like a thing that sometimes happens, and I don't know if that tells something about like either of the households they grew up in or something, but it's just an interesting detail that I've noticed. And so we sit down at the table, and the most important question of the entire game gets asked. Belgian waffle or bacon omelette. I chose the bacon omelette because I'm not much of a sweet food person. I do have my sweet tooth sometimes, but when it comes to actual food, I like stuff like bacon omelette much more. And then after some talking, Chloe appears and is all over Max about, yo, I need you to prove your powers and stuff. And so the testing starts first with the pockets and then with the whole telling the future by saying, yo, the truck driver drops his mug, the police officer gets a call and his buddy leaves without him. The guys from school fight and Joyce breaks it up, and then the cockroach lands on the jukebox and messes with it. All that stuff, and after that, Max gets a nosebleed because that was definitely a lot of playing around with the powers. And even though Max shows clear signs of that playing around with her powers is probably not a good thing and messing with her, Chloe still insists to change location and play around with the powers some more. And I don't know if it's me knowing what happens in the future of this very episode, or if I got older, or something. I don't know. But that situation really started to rub me the wrong way. I don't know. And obviously, and I'm going to get at that a tiny bit later, Chloe is a complex character. But she's starting to annoy me a little here. And so they get up, go to the door, and Max gets a call from Kate. And it's one of those bigger decisions, because you get the flashing screen of answer the call and don't answer the call. And obviously I picked answering the call because Kate is not doing well. And even though Chloe complains and is like, yo, you didn't talk to me for 5 years, and she has a point there, suddenly you're all over some. And I really don't like the words she used there, so I'm not going to repeat them. Like the way she talked about the person. I don't think Chloe knows who exactly Kate is, and I'm guessing that if she knew about all the circumstances, she might have reacted differently, but it's complicated. So I answered Kate's call, Chloe got pissed, and we left for the junkyard. And so at the junkyard, everyone's favorite minigame starts, the bottle collecting. But I realized there's a reason why you have to collect those bottles, and it's not simply for Chloe's stupid little shooting range rewind playtime. It's so you explore the junkyard, because not everybody is a completionist and out for hunting the photo ops that might be hiding in the junkyard. So you have to walk through there and then discover the hideout that Rachel and Chloe used to hang out at, and it kind of shows a little how close they were. And so after collecting all those bottles, and I didn't know where you had to shoot, but not once did I have to rewind to save Chloe's life from the shooting range action. And I'm kind of happy about that. Like, that was kind of cool. Like, I didn't remember where, but I don't know. Maybe it was intuition or just random luck. But yeah. And that's just another thing that just Max told her to be careful. And she got like this really hardcore nosebleed and even passed out for a second. And then just Chloe insists on doing more stuff, and wants Max to shoot, and Max doesn't want to, and then Frank comes, so that situation, if Max has to shoot or not, gets resolved by having to decide if she should shoot Frank or not. And I didn't, because it made sense to me that Max wouldn't shoot a person, like she states in the first episode, and also when Chloe pulls out a gun and tells Max to try shooting, that she doesn't like guns, so obviously I choose not to shoot Frank. So he got the gun. And Chloe was pissed at that again. And that's just something like, yeah, she's a complex character, and with all the things that have happened to her in the past 5 years, a bit further, it's kinda obvious that she has some issues. Like, I have issues too that also mess with the way I react to things. But it's just like, Max can't do anything right now in Chloe's eyes. Even going back to episode 1, when Max stayed hidden in the closet, Chloe told her before David came in that she should hide, because it would be worse if David caught her being there. And after the situation, when staying hidden, she told her that it was probably for the better that Max stayed hidden, because the situation would have been worse if she came out. And what happens in the next episode, or if you open the text, Chloe is mad at Max for not stepping in and saving her when David was a shit person to her. And that's just like this constant switch between, like, yeah, do this, do that, and then being mad at Max for doing something that was like common sense and stuff. Like, not shooting Frank because Max doesn't like guns and stuff, and then, I mean, that Chloe is mad at Max for not properly talking to her for 5 years. That's valid. But the rest is like, it's so complicated, and I don't know if I'm just in a mood or something. But it's kinda exhausting and annoying, and obviously Chloe is still one of my favorite characters, my precious little bean. But yeah, and after that they go on the train tracks, and they have this sweet little moment and everything, and Chloe's foot gets stuck in the train tracks, but Max manages to save her. I even managed to do the whole route with the fuse box so the train doesn't get messed with, so I saved the lumber economy of Acadia Bay. And then it's time to go back to school. Back at school, there's a little time before the lesson starts, so I just explored a little, helped Warren with his sign experiment, mainly for the photo op, but just to explore and get some additional dialogue. Miss Grant was still mad at Max for not signing the petition, and then I left for the photography classroom and saw Kate talking to Mr. Jefferson, and then running off being super upset. And everyone who knows the game knows where she's going, but Max doesn't, so I feel like that's also some kind of narrative train tracks that you're on, that you definitely have to go to the classroom and can't go after Kate to talk to her and say, "Yo, hey, I just saw you being upset by what you just, that you talked to Mr. Jefferson, and can I help you? Are you alright?" Something like that. But I guess that's something. But even if you were able to talk to her, she probably would have just brushed it off and ran away to the roof anyway. And so you're preparing for the lesson while Mr. Jefferson is out taking that phone call, and then that guy comes in and says, "Yo, everyone, go look." And so everyone runs out to the girls' dormitory, and Kate's on the roof, and everyone is in the yard looking at her and pointing and watching, and it's raining, and oh, look, Victoria has her phone out. Doesn't she fucking learn? Like, starting with the scene in the showers, I regretted saying those good words that I said about her in episode 1 instantly. And then seeing her down in the crowd while Kate is up on the roof because of Victoria, mostly, like, I'm pretty sure that Victoria had the most action in getting Kate on that roof. And she has nothing better to do than point her camera at that situation. And that's just so vile. It's sickening. And then there comes the thing that I think is so cool narratively with Max's powers, because Kate jumps and Max tries to rewind and it isn't far enough, and Kate jumps again and Max rewinds again, and suddenly time stops. And Max makes her way through the crowd in slow motion and gets to the door and goes on the roof, and suddenly she's on the roof and tries to rewind to get Kate off that edge, and she can't. And I think the setup was so brilliant with her getting the nosebleed in the diner after that experimenting there, and then again getting an even harder nosebleed in the junkyard, and then getting an even worse nosebleed up on the roof trying to rewind one more time to get Kate off the edge. And you can't, and then you're on your own with your own knowledge, only the words you can and dialogue options you can choose. No rewinding. What you say goes and decides about Kate's fate. And I managed to save Kate, to talk her off that roof, and I gotta say, it was surprisingly easy. I guess I must have picked the right choice and action every time I had something to do with Kate, and that led to Max only having to say like a few words. I think I only had like 2 dialogue options that I had to choose, and the rest was Max just talking on her own, saying, hey, I erased that link and I scrubbed off the mean words on the whiteboard next to your dorm room door, and everything like that. The only thing that I had to tell her was that her dad would be worried and that they are friends. That Max is Kate's friend. And that was it. After some more talking, it was good. I remember some playthroughs from a while ago, a few years actually, that I had to pick a lot more dialogue options to save Kate, like her favorite Bible verse, and I think a few more things. And that's why I looked through her room so intensely, not only to explore for the sake of the replay through, but also to have like intel to save her, which I in the end didn't even need, which was cool. So off the roof, Kate is saved. We're in the office of Principal Wells, and I ended up blaming Jefferson because that's the last person Max saw Kate interact with before running off, absolutely crying and being upset. And Jefferson even had Max's back there and kind of took some of the blame that he said, yeah, I tried to talk to her and everything, like, the situation went pretty well, it felt like. Because there was not much tension there. Jefferson did mention that Max said something about David, but that's it. He kinda did take the blame, and Principal Wells did suspend him. So that was like the end result of episode 2 for me. Max was talking to Warren in the end, and they saw the eclipse, and so the outro song played, and that's it for episode 2 Out of Time. It's an super intense episode with the whole contrast between having fun with Chloe on the junkyard, small little fights about stuff ignored, and then this super tense situation of talking Kate off the roof. And I'm just sitting here glad that I could, if it wasn't for the way I record this podcast special episode right now, I could just play the game back to back each episode. It would be so weird and interesting, also having all kind of theories and stuff. Like, back in the day when the game came out, I got into it relatively late, so I didn't have to wait for all the episodes to come out, but oh boy, some of the episodes would have had me so tense until the next one would have been out. And that's kind of cool, having like some cliffhangers here and there, or setting up more of the mystery that you want to have the next puzzle piece to solve. And with that, my thoughts on episode 2 come to an end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to follow me on my social media, especially channel 3, the Goodreads for video games. All important links are in the description, and until the next episode, bye.